on the dot, and here it is 1:15. Ran into some minor technical challenges, actually big technical challenges. It was being really annoying today, but I'm glad we were able to make it on. And with that, I'm glad you're here with us as well. So I'm here today with my colleague Dina Otero, and we were going to have a really fun conversation. Originally, I was supposed to be joined by another one of my colleagues, Richard. Unfortunately, he is not feeling well and couldn't join us today. So Dina came because she has some very strong opinions on the topic we're going to talk about.
I do,
So,
and it's still going to be
great. So what we wanted to talk about today was to have a little bit of a discussion about technology. I think the topic that I had put on this, or the subject that I put on this, is the difference between technology and service. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right title or not, because I think the fact is, we're in a world and a time right now where technology is growing exponentially. There's all sorts of fancy bells and whistles and frills that you can buy and use for whatever your purposes are. From our perspective, we're looking at or working with a lot of different clients who are using technology to further market research or to forward, various insights, collection and reporting and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of opportunity out there to get really fancy, different, cool, new technologies. And, I think it's a wonderful time to consider different technologies, but I think that there are a lot of considerations in that. And you need to spend some time really thinking through whether technologies are right for you before diving in. So I wanted to spend a little time kind of thinking about that. So Dina, I think, from your perspective, you've probably seen many an instance where there are good and bad technologies out there. What do you think is a real hit? What do you think in terms of technology is a great thing that everybody really should be looking at or considering?
I mean, my answer is probably going to be obvious because everyone's already talking about it, but AI. I mean, AI is here. And here's the crazy thing. People hear AI and they automatically assume it's robots taking over the world, coming to get rid of people. It's not like that at all. I mean, those are movies. This is not the Terminator. Instead, AI is really helping humans, not hurting us, in the sense that it's allowing us to kind of learn things that we didn't have available earlier. So things such as automated transcriptions, that's AI, intent data, text analytics, and even not even just text analytics like reading words, but understanding the sentiment that those words were written in. So instead of spending hundreds of hours reading some transcript and hoping that you were able to manually decipher if something was said sarcastically or positively or negatively, AI does that automatically for you. The other thing with AI is machine learning, whether it's models that are already built within tools that you're using and using that information from machine learning to adjust those models, intent data. Anything from a marketer's perspective, insight perspective, AI can take what you're doing from good to amazing, simply because it frees up your time to allow you to do more. And it's not necessarily about working harder, but meaning do more by getting more information that's actually actionable or information that's really important and relevant, instead of just kind of being like, oh, I think this is good, but we don't really know for sure because it was said in this way, and maybe it was said sarcastically. But AI is here, and it's only going to keep getting better, and it has benefits for everyone. The other thing, and I don't know if this really falls into AI, but it sort of does, are like chatbots. And the reason I say this is because it is AI, because basically what they're doing, and this is such a broad term, and I think this is where people kind of forget that AI does not necessarily mean one thing. Anything that is being automated by a computer or a technology of any kind and is doing something that allows you to action on it without human manpower or manual, that's AI. So chatbots are have really, really improved over the last, I would say, like 6 years or so. They're no longer just taking a subset of questions that were once available and you have to click, this is what I'm interested in. It's basically like having a real conversation with someone. And then they're using that sentiment, that data, those keywords from your questions and your comments to then direct you to the right area. So
Right.
it's pretty amazing what AI has been able to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge time saver. Helps to be able to, as you pointed out, set your models up more quickly and things like text analytics. And I think AI is really an important thing, and people shouldn't be as afraid of it as some are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's our opinion. I know some people are still ranting and railing. No, 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 no. It's going to take our jobs. But I would say, I think you nailed it when you said, actually, no, it just frees you up to do the other stuff that machines can't do yet. And I think that's a really important takeaway. But on the flip side, actually, before I go into the flip side, we drink during the show.
Yeah,
What'd you bring with
I've
us
got my
today?
drink today, and I've
Okay,
got it in my Confirm It cup. Got a nice margarita with me.
lovely,
Yes,
lovely.
happy Friday.
I didn't go so branded, but I did find a new beer of choice this week. I was on a Sam Adams kick for a while, and now I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's Hogarden.
Yeah.
It's, I believe, a Belgian beer, and I'm liking it. So that's all that matters. So I've got my drink for today.
Yeah,
So
Hogarden's
I
are
think
great.
it's really good.
Mhm.
And I read, totally off topic, but those who are interested in beer, I actually bought this because I read somewhere that it's one of the few beers, because of the way it's fermented, it's one of the few beers that actually has probiotic properties. So therefore, it is good for your digestion and good for you in general. So I'm like,
I did
well,
not know that.
that's exactly what I needed, was an excuse to drink more beer. I'm in.
There you
So
go.
anyway, back to the topic at hand. Um, we talked about the good stuff. AI is really great now, and it has potential. I don't think that it's completely at a place where it takes over the human job, because it still is growing and learning and
Mhm.
so on. And that's the whole point of machine learning. It's a machine that's learning. But on the other hand, I think that there are probably many a technology throughout our histories that we've seen come into play where it's been kind of dumb, and
Mhm.
it doesn't do what you thought it would do, or it kind of undermines what you're trying to accomplish. I've given the example before of the pet rock, which I think it's funny, but back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, the pet rock was a thing, and it's not really technology, but I'll get there. Because in the late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere in there, even maybe the mid 2000s, they took the pet rock and they added a USB cord to it so you could plug it into your computer. And the advertisement behind it was, what does it do? Nothing. It still does nothing. But people will ask you, and it's a funny joke.
Wow.
You're going to pay for that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I honestly, to be entirely honest, yes, I would totally buy a USB powered pet rock, just because I do think that's hilarious. But I think it is a kind of a good example of those moments where things can look sparkly and shiny, and we can add bells and whistles to it. But I think you need to step back at a certain point and kind of understand: does this really support my research requirements? Does this make my people more efficient? Is this going to help with creativity? What is this going to do for me? Is this really going to help further my cause?
Mhm.
So I gave my example of a pet rock. Do you have any good examples of terrible technology that you've seen and really should be
Yes.
thought about?
Yes. So, I mean, let's go with the well-known one, which was the Google Glass. Do you remember those glasses that were supposed to like
Yes.
Google things for you? That was terrible. But along those lines, I would actually say, and I don't know, this might be a hot topic here, but augmented reality and virtual reality. Never saw the value. It has a fun factor. I will give it that. Definitely a gamification. But any value add, does it add to your research? Does it give your panelists an additional channel to pick up information or capture feedback or capture responses? No. If anything, it just probably made people really dizzy and gave them vertigo,
Yeah.
which is really a shame, because it has that fun factor, and it could have given researchers a whole new element or a whole new way of connecting with their like focus groups or panelists. But until that technology becomes more, uh, I guess, when that technology becomes less dizzying, if
Yeah.
ever, I mean, it's going to be really hard and it's going to take a lot of time for people to get used to it. It messes with you. It's really hard. I mean,
It
even if you're
does.
just doing it for a couple seconds, you want to take that off and you're like, oh, it's hard. There's also, like I mentioned, a value add proposition. So we saw augmented reality at conferences for like a solid year. Just everyone had them because it was the cool new thing. But then as soon as you ask the question about how does this tie back to your company or how does this tie back to your product, it was like, oh no, it doesn't. It's just a way to get you to come to our booth. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, so does you can also have skee ball or a ping pong table or something. Like, why augmented reality? So it's a very thin line of finding balance between what is fun, what is engaging, but also identifying that value add and clearly being able to promote that value add to your product.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
and when was the last time you saw VR now or augmented reality? I think it was a bust.
Not in a while.
Yeah,
I mean, I do remember the conferences you're talking about, and you're right. The coolness factor was
yeah,
totally there, and I think there is something to come, but I just don't think it's well thought out yet.
yeah.
That whole world. I mean, as a Star Trek fan, I am a huge Star Trek fan. For anybody who doesn't know, and my whole aspiration in this world is to be able to live in the holodeck of the Enterprise. So if you don't get that reference, well, you're missing out. But the whole idea of virtual reality, augmented reality is there's something there, I'm sure, but nobody's figured it out yet.
Yeah,
Full disclosure, I'd say during that same period of time, Confirmit actually built an virtual
I remember
reality
that.
survey as well. So we were part of that whole
Yeah,
group of people who were trying to do this thing. But you're right, that was exactly what happened. Is we had it at our booth at some event, and people were literally getting dizzy trying to take a survey.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if there are side effects, there are challenges, and again, it goes back to that thing. What is it adding to the research? And I realize that we're in a universe where respondents can be a little bit challenging. Getting them to pay attention to the survey, but if they're getting nauseous taking the survey, it's probably not going to help to improve engagement. So I think you're dead on with the augmented virtual reality. Maybe sometime in the future the technology will be better, but right now, no way,
yeah,
no way. Um, so it's very interesting. I totally think that we're aligned.
yeah.
So the funny thing is, we'd actually done something similar to this conversation back when the new Grit Report first came out, and I thought the Grit Report was pretty awesome. I do love the Grit Report. I get a little bit nerdy about that. I wonder if there's a correlation between a Star Trek addiction and loving the market research stuff. I don't know, but yes, I'm an epic nerd, and I'm proud of it.
Own
But
it.
I thought there were some, huh?
I said, own
What was
it.
that?
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah.
I thought there were some interesting things from the Grit Report that kind of pointed to this. And excuse me while I look off, but I have the stats on my other screen here. There is a huge trend in organizations, research companies moving toward technology, putting larger investments in technology. And there is a general thought that these people who are investing in technology are going to be able to do better in terms of getting better results and so on and so forth. But like I said, I think there's this fine balance, and I think there's one more piece to it. So something else that I thought was really interesting from the Grit Report, when we look at what research suppliers have said are critical elements to success, it's understanding their clients' goals and strategies, having the trust of the decision maker in their client organizations, communicating effectively with their clients.
Mhm.
It continued on with things like, being able to make better recommendations. Let's see, linking those recommendations back to actual business objectives and helping to be able to make the business grow. So, what I found interesting about this is that this is how researchers are saying they are able to be most effective. And it's funny that their effectiveness is, despite their desire to invest in technology, they're then coming out and saying that their effectiveness is actually related to these human, more, soft skills, human skills.
Yeah.
And there, in return, on the flip side of that, the buyers of research are saying that these same soft skills are super, super important. But
Mm-hmm.
what I find is that I think these researchers who are looking to these technology vendors are not making that linkage, that these soft skills are equally important for them to be receiving as people buying technology. If
Yeah,
I'm making any sense. So
it does.
as a research person who is using technology, yes, it's important, but it's clearly not. It's great. It's really important, and it's hard because we're a tech vendor. Confirm it as technology, but I think as a technology vendor, even we need to be able to admit that the technology is only part of the deal. It's the soft skills as well. It's what the technology vendor is doing. Yes, they can be shiny, they can be bright, they can be new, but it's what they're doing soft skills wise, what kind of service they're providing to you, how they're helping you accomplish your goals and tasks. Do they understand your business and help you to accomplish your goals? Do they push you to be more creative or
Mhm.
do more exciting things? So I think that's an interesting area for conversation too, that without those soft skills, that service capability, that any technology is just going to fall flat no matter how good or bad it is.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. So for a long time, I mean, that I evaluate vendors and technology all the time, and
Absolutely.
it's important to do that for a couple of reasons. Even if you're happy with the existing tools that you're using, one, you want to make sure that it is still the most current platform out there, or an
Right.
opportunity to kind of renegotiate your renewal, your contract, or maybe there's some new features that one of the competitors might be doing and you're interested in it, and so it kind of allows you to then have that conversation with your current vendor about their roadmap and things like that. But during my career, I've evaluated plenty of vendors, and I got to a point where I still gave people or companies a chance, even if I had red flags coming up in the beginning of the sales process. And I will tell you, more times than not, I should have listened to my gut, because those were the companies that I immediately got rid of. Basically, like, even if we worked with them, they were really poor partners. And I'll go into that in a minute. And like, after the contract was over, I wanted to replace them immediately. And so I'm now at a point where I know, like, just from experience, that if the initial calls don't go well, they're immediately cut from my list. I'm not even going to give them a chance, because I'm not only wasting their time, more importantly, I'm wasting my company's money, my time, and anyone else that's involved in the implementation and the adoption. And it's not fair. It's not fair to anybody. With that said, though, what does make a good partnership is, quite frankly, communication. And it sounds so stupid and so silly, but person to person, we all get so caught up into this. We're selling business to business. No, you're not. People are buying from people. Yes, Confirm It is selling to X organization, but who's the person behind that organization? Same thing on our end. If we're buying, some AI tool, I'll stick to AI just because we were talking about it earlier, and they're throwing all these buzzwords at me, and they have zero interest in learning about my process, learning about my challenges, learning about my company, learning about my objectives. Then why? They're not going to be a partnership. They literally just want to sell. And that means I'm not going to hear from them for 11 months until the renewal is up,
Hmm.
and that's it.
And
And
then all
that
of a
is
sudden
really,
you're their bestie, right?
exactly, all of a sudden, yeah, you're their bestie. Oh, how are you? How's everything? No. Where have you been the last 11 months? Now, because my contract needs to be signed in the next 30 days, you are bombarding me with meetings.
Right.
And that for anybody should be red flag number one, whether it's a tool you're using today or one you're evaluating. If they only reach out to you during contract time or renewal time, you need to reevaluate that relationship, because partnerships are a two-way street. They should be checking in with you. They should know what you're working on, and providing insights and providing tips and saying, hey, listen, maybe you've thought of this direction. If not, I'm happy to jump on a call with you and go through some of these ideas. Oh, wow, that sounds like a really interesting initiative. I'm not familiar with this. Can you tell me more about it? There's this conversation that just happens, that they show that they actually care about what you're doing, and your success is their success. And that is the biggest difference between a vendor and a partner. And I know this topic for today is service, and that is a really big part of it, because there is implementation, there's adoption, and there's scaling and growth. And those are all related to service. You as the person that's purchasing it, that's implementing it, and then ultimately getting your team to use it. So the more people that are involved in a process, the stronger and stickier that technology will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think you nailed it. It's really important to have that level of service and not just have somebody who's trying to jam you down the buying cycle every 5 minutes.
Right.
I would say on top of that, on top of just the contacting you once a year, I would be very cautious of the ones who are constantly trying to jam technology down your throat that you don't need. And
Right.
again, we say this from the technology vendor perspective. If you're working with a vendor who's trying to upsell or cross sell you things that you don't need. Now, this does not extend into the world of things where they say to you, listen, you're doing this, and the next evolution is this. Consider, obviously, there are things that are appropriate. There are times when it's appropriate and good to introduce you to things. But if they're, if they're throwing you things that are completely way offline for what your business does, then you kind of got to wonder, do you understand me at all, and how good is that relationship? And that was one of those key things from the grit report, is
Yeah.
understanding the business, communicating, being sure that it connects back to business needs, back to business outcomes and goals. And I realized that with the grit report, they were kind of talking about different things. They were talking about what the researchers are expected to provide to their customers. But like I said, I think it totally pulls back the exact same things, pull back into technology and how we need to be evaluating any technology we use. So I think when it comes to a certain point where you're ready to make that decision about buying a technology, it's really important to look at this whole spectrum. What we've talked about today is you need to be considering, is that technology really going to support my needs as a business? Does the technology make my people more efficient? Does it reduce complexity? Or question, does it increase complexity?
Right.
Is it going to help to drive creativity in the team? Is it going to help to accomplish your objectives and your goals? Is it going to improve productivity? Are there long-term returns? And that's all about the technology piece. But probably the bigger, bolder question is this vendor going to be a supportive a supportive partner to make sure that I'm successful? And I think you nailed it with what you said, Dina. You have to be working with somebody who's supporting you. Your goals have to be their goals,
Right.
or it's not a partnership. And I
Right.
think that is the number one thing to walk away with, because it's really easy to get hung up in new and shiny,
Oh,
Google
yeah.
Glass, or augmented reality that makes people, or I'm sorry, virtual reality that makes people nauseous.
Yeah.
It is good. And again, maybe both. They might have potential somewhere, just maybe later, or in a different way.
It
So I'm
needs to
not trying
be,
to,
yeah.
but it's. I think there's just, we have to consider the big picture when we go into a technology buy, about all of the different things and how it supports you technology, but how it supports you services wise.
Yeah. The other thing I will suggest for anyone that is evaluating vendors is, I know budget is always such a hot topic, and it's unfortunately, I should say, it's usually a deciding factor as well. But one area that I would tell people to really focus on is, don't eliminate a vendor right off the bat simply based on price, because if they are the type of company that wants to see you succeed, they will find a way to make the budget work, whether it's split billing or discounts up front, or they'll find a way. And so if they're like, absolutely not, we cannot, I'm not saying that they're going to cut your contract by $100,000, but if it's something semi-reasonable, and don't eliminate them. Wait, if you truly believe that they are the partner that you want to work with, keep it going, because I guarantee that they will work with you from a budget or finance perspective to make sure that you are happy and your numbers can align.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I take it another step as well, is that budgets at times can be somewhat malleable as well.
Yep.
Even though you walk in with, X number of dollars assigned to this particular project, it gets to a point where you realize that the value you're getting, or the ability to use the particular technology across multiple projects or areas of the business, makes it worth paying a little more. So I
Mhm.
definitely think budget, although yeah, money is always an important thing, it's something where, yeah, that should not be the first thing you take off your list. It should be the absolute last,
Yeah.
once you know if they're going to meet the technology requirements, help your business, build in the business value that you need, and be a supportive partner. Then look at budget and see what you can do about working with them, either on their side if they can make accommodations, or on yours. If
Yeah.
you can prove that business value, a lot of executives are willing to say, all right, well, I see the value. Okay, here's a little extra.
Yeah.
It's just a matter. And furthermore, a lot of vendors, if they're really stuck in a place where they can't do much with the budget, a lot of vendors will help you build that business case. Don't
Of course.
hesitate to
Yeah.
ask your vendor, help me build a business case for a bigger budget.
Hmm.
There's no reason they would. Why would they say no? You're about to potentially bring them a sale. Of course, they're going to help you put a business case together. So don't. Yeah, you're dead on. Money should not
Yeah.
be the first thing you think about. It should be the last.
Yeah.
And though it is an important consideration, there are so many ins and outs and workarounds that can be considered in the process.
Right.
So, Dina, we've gotten to just about time. This was a lot of fun, as always.
It
I
was
think I'm
fun.
gonna, I love having our conversations, because we always, tag team off of each other really well. So I'm gonna have to bring you back a million times, because this is awesome and
I'm
it
happy
was fun.
to.
I don't think you drank nearly enough during
I
the call,
know.
though.
Sorry, I was too busy talking.
That's it. So we'll pass on our cheers to everybody who's been watching. We do want to remind you to like, subscribe, share comments. We'd love to hear about your experiences in terms of what you've seen in buying technology. If you've had any funny experiences with maybe a little buyer's remorse,
Mm.
or great technologies that we didn't discuss, things that people should be considering. I think that's a very important topic in the research industry. We need to share with each other what is next. What should we be looking at? So share your comments with us. We'd love to hear it. Um, Otherwise, we'll be back in a couple of weeks to do it all over again with a new and fun topic, though I forget what we're talking about next time. So we'll have to get back to you with an advertisement on that one, because I have no recollection whatsoever
Yeah.
at this moment. But otherwise, thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a happy Friday. Enjoy your afternoon cocktails, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank you. Bye, Holly.
Bye bye.